But speaking of bouncing back and forth, because of the transfer portal, we have heard coaches on this show discuss how much there is tampering in college athletics. Mac Brown was on with us earlier this week and talked about what happened when he was at North Carolina. Jeff Traylor has joined us. Many have done it. And now a landmark moment. College sports, University of Wisconsin has filed a lawsuit against the University of Miami for tampering, eventually poaching a college football player under contract, Xavier Lucas, who's already at Miami, per documents obtained by Yahoo Sports. Now, I don't know the legal part of this. Is this even a thing? Can Miami be in trouble for tampering? Is there a rule against this? You would think if you're Wisconsin, you got to have some receipts.
So, Wisconsin claims that, and it happened in three parties. Obviously, Wisconsin, Miami, and Lucas, the player. Wisconsin claims that Miami communicated with Lucas, knowingly inducing him despite knowing he had entered a contract with the school, something it terms as intentional interference that was not justified or privileged and caused Lucas to breach his contract. They made impermissible contact and engaged in tampering, the suit says. Wisconsin said it reluctantly filed the suit. The Big Ten is supporting them in their suit against Miami. So they've got the conference behind them. And it sets a lot of precedents in revenue sharing and all of this. And this was a revenue sharing deal, an NIL deal, apparently, that they had signed, seeing as he would be there for the revenue sharing part of this as a new recruit at Wisconsin in the year that revenue sharing starts. Now, Smokey, I would like to go back to something and tell you what the most interesting part of this lawsuit is. It is only secondarily, surprisingly enough, that one school is calling out another for tampering.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting part is, okay, Smokey, when you've had a contract before,
Yep.
you are what? What's the word for a person who has a contract and works for someone?
Bound?
No. What's the word? Like, what
Employee.
would you be? You would be an employee,
There
wouldn't
you go.
you?
Yep.
Well, the NCAA has long contended and continues to contend that they are not employees.
Right.
But if they're not employees, then how can you breach a contract for services rendered? Even if that is a contract employee, it's still an employee. So there's going to be some, when this ruling comes down, whatever that is, could be a long time, could be a short time, could be a medium time. But that is the thing I'm most interested to see is if the court says and uses, and Wisconsin in this contractual thing is going to have to use regular employment contracts of people who have jobs normally as their basis for this. Because otherwise you're saying, well, he had a contract, but he's not going to work. He's not technically working here. He's playing football and we're paying him money to be there. And all of that they're going to go through. That is what I think that is the most interesting offshoot of this. And Wisconsin may have purposefully or inadvertently set off the let's make a decision on if these guys are employees once and for all.
Well, yeah, no, that's right. You wonder, can you question somebody's ability to leave or somebody's ability to contact somebody who's at another school if in fact there is no contract or if you're not an employee. This is going to be, I don't know where this ends. It's just another story that's legal. It's another story about NIL or transfer portal, whatever. I don't know how this is going to end. I don't know enough of the rules behind all this, but we've had coaches who have said that their players are getting tampered with. We have had coaches that have said that they never, like, I don't know if anyone has been on this show that has said there is tampering going on, actually bring up another school.
Yeah.
And here's what Paul said earlier before we went on the air with Garrett and Emery and also with Andrew Valade and me. You better not have done anything like that as your staff.
All right. We are building something that will shake the big brand in the industry.
I just couldn't help myself. It tasted so good. It smelled so good.
I drink so much water now.
No one has been able to provide great water and a compelling alternative to single-use bottles. And I became obsessed with solving that problem.
I mean,
Brett Bielema or a strength and conditioning coach or men's basketball, softball.
it's Luke Fickle, not Brett Bielema. Yes.
That's right. Luke,
Yeah.
Luke Fickle. You had better not. You had better not have any kind of evidence against you that you have ever reached out to a player who's under contract for NIL with another school.
See, so I mean, this happened back in the winter, and it's now late June when this is filed. So I'm assuming that one of the things that the athletic department, particularly athletic director, did is get everybody in the room and say, hey, circle of trust, you're not in trouble. But we are likely going to sue Miami because they poached Xavier Lucas. And so you have to go to every sport that would potentially have this kind of a thing. It probably doesn't happen like swimming and track and field and things like that, because the elite athletes in track and field, you know, they know that there's not money there for them, but there's NIL money that could be a lot if they're really elite, because Nike or, you know, somebody, Gatorade's going to sponsor you anyway. But you're going to football and basketball and everybody going, is there anybody here who's done anything remotely similar to this? And boosters and all that. Like, have you ever done anything like this, knowing that one of the guys who transferred to us and came to our school was already in the place that they were, and then we did this? And if you feel confident that everybody's telling you the truth that no, then you go forward with this. But I do believe that Miami's legal team will now be on the lookout for this. And then at least, if not bring it up in court, leak it to somebody who'd be like, oh, well, you think this is so bad? Look what so-and-so did.
Yep.
Gotcha. You know, so you have to move on this very confidently, knowing that you have likely not done this yourself, because a lot of people are doing it, and maybe not to the level, like maybe this is the one where it wasn't just a couple of, text messages here and there, where it was, you have some receipts that says like, no, they knew this. They told him how to get out of this. They told him what to do. They gave him the plan.
Where did they get the text messages from?
Well, I mean,
the Lucas is surely not going to share them.
Well, maybe somebody else was there. Maybe somebody's overridden with guilt. I don't know. But like, they clearly have some belief that they can uncover evidence. Now, part of the thing that they can do now that they've sued him is they can subpoena, because it's in court. You can subpoena certain records.
Cole in the chat room, this is not how law works. Miami can't claim, well, Wisconsin did it too.
No.
And the case disappears. That's not what he said.
That's not what I said. If Miami finds out that he did, what they would do is leak it to the media that they did. So then it makes their lawsuit look bad. Now, that doesn't maybe affect the court, but it'll make Wisconsin look bad, which Wisconsin has already made Miami look bad. So it's a tit for tat kind of a thing.
No, what we mean by that is, if you're going to file the suit, which they apparently have, Wisconsin, that it doesn't mean Miami. If they find that Wisconsin has, it's just that you start getting into the mud. That's the whole part.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's political at that point. So if Smokey and I were running for office against each other, and I found out that Smokey cheated on his taxes, or I had pretty, evidence that he could, and I would be like, oh, you don't want to tax cheat like David Smoke, being the senator from the great state of Texas. And then Smokey's people go, oh, really? Let me find out. And then you find out that, like, well, I didn't cheat on my taxes, but I've claimed some dubious things.
You did, because you had somebody that you used to work for.
Like all that, like, oh, well, you didn't stop this from going on. And then it's like,
oh, God.
So then you kind of have to both be like, okay, look, we're both sons of bitches.
Yeah.
Which one of us do you want to vote for
I paid
more?
my 24 taxes in full by April 15th. And I also found something from the 2023 taxes. In fact, my CPA did as well, where I am paying that a little bit. And so
so, I mean, I'm not saying you are.
God almighty, Paul, why would you say this live in the air? They're going to come after me.
No. Okay. I was using that, but like,
I
you know,
no,
we both, okay. We're
I've
both
always been a good wingman
Yes,
to
we
you,
are.
and I've
No,
never
that's
turned you in for any.
That's not true.
Really?
At all.
Why?
That's not true at all.
You mean when it comes to like?
Yeah. No.
Okay.
Yeah. No. No. I'll just say we're both slumlords.
Yes.
My apartments have air conditioning. Yours don't, but you have a pool.
I don't have our air conditioning because my windows have bullet holes.
Yeah. You know. So.
All right. So there we are. I don't know. We're getting some feedback, and now certain fan bases, like they do with college athletics, so and so they've tampered, or so and so's tampered, or no. And of course, everyone says no. I have a feeling everybody does, and that may not be fair. Garrett, you're shaking your head. Yes,
I completely agree with you.
I got a feeling that there's probably a little bit of that going on. Some probably do it a hell of a lot more than others, but I got a feeling, I think with the way that the transfer portal is set up, I think it's probably nearly impossible that most everybody in some way, you're losing players. You got to go find players. I just can't imagine that not everybody has crossed that line.
What's the line from Tombstone where he's talking to Doc about his wife, you know, the one that's on laudanum, and he's like, and what a maiden, pure as the driven snow,
yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Like,
yeah,
okay.
Is that when she disappears under the sheets? That
you know, she's like, he goes in and sees her, and she's like, why leave me alone?
Yeah.
I'm fine. Yeah, that one. But yeah, he, you know, and so yeah, it's that. Like, yes, there is likely someone to some degree, whether it's, you know, it's kind of like stealing from the office. Okay. There's probably some schools that have, you know, taken some staples, right? And then there's some other schools that have embezzled from the office. Like it's differing levels, but nobody's like, oh, well, I didn't take any toilet paper home. No, I mean, like, you did. Everyone's done it.
The old barn cat, go K-State. Even on a 1099, you're still considered an employee by the company you work with.
Yeah.
So are the NIL deals connected to a 1099? If you make over $600 in a year?
Here's
the thing. I do the academic all-stars. We honor 20 student athletes, and every one of them has to fill out a form to the Waco Foundation claiming that, yes, I did receive $1,000 check.
Yeah. So that's where it gets interesting to me is they are, I would think, and again, not a lawyer, but because this is so unprecedented, that the thing you're going to have to compare it to is actual employment contracts and things that interfere. So if I worked for AT&T and I was a high-level executive, and then I bumped into my friend that works at Verizon at the convention, he's like, hey, listen, you know, the new VP spot's coming up. I told them they needed to call you. I'm like, oh, I just signed a 5-year deal. And they're like, we got that. Don't worry about that. We'll figure that out. And we breached the contract together. Well, I was an employee of AT&T and now an employee at Verizon, right? That's what you're going to base it on, not some kind like there's nothing else you can compare this to. That's not an employee-employer type relationship. So that's where I think that they're going to get in the weeds. And the NCAA is watching this probably going, oh, please don't say it. Please, judge, don't say it. Don't say employee. You're going to say employee. Crap, they say employee. All right, here we go.
So let's go through some of the actual details. And Paul went over some of it, but this is from the article, and Ross Dellinger, again, all over it. Lucas signed an NIL agreement with the collective to compensate him until the university could legally, within settlement terms, compensate him with revenue sharing in July. In the suit, Wisconsin describes Lucas's promise payment as substantial and one of the highest among Badgers football players. 2 weeks into the opening of the portal last December, Lucas, to that point, having shown all commitment to Wisconsin and surprised and shocked the Wisconsin staff with his request to enter the portal. That's part of the complaint. Lucas, who signed last year as a four-star rated player from South Florida, played in 11 games, had 18 tackles. He requested a transfer after learning while home over the holidays that his father suffered a serious life-threatening illness. Darren Heitner, who's been on this show, I remember when all this came up. We've had Darren on the show. I reached out to him earlier today. Serious life-threatening illness. Now, before the transfer portal, we saw sometimes when the NCAA had to give in with somebody who was not a grad transfer, back when you had to be a grad transfer, or if you did transfer, you had to sit out a year. There were occasionally there was an exception or two. In the suit, Wisconsin questions Lucas's rationale for seeking to transfer, writing that he provided inconsistent information to coaches on December 21st, 4 days after he asked for his name to be inputted into the portal. There's more and more multiple impermissible contacts with Lucas during December. Miami coach also, according to this report, prominent Miami alumnus, visited Lucas's Florida home in December with a compensation commitment for him to leave Madison. The offer was more lucrative than the one that he had and signed with Wisconsin.
Yeah. Yes. And like, I remember a couple of those cases where guys wanted to transfer, and in the midst of they transfer, they wanted to play right away. And then in the midst of them waiting out, the relative got better, and the NCAA's like, well, they're better now. You're like, well, I didn't know that when I got here.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't doing well.
Yeah, you could tug on the heartstrings of a judge, though, couldn't you?
Yeah, you could. And a lot of times, those things worked out. But, it's all going to be about the timeline of things, what evidence they have, what things don't boil down to, hearsay, which is you say he said that or you say this, but we can't provide any evidence of it. I'm very curious as to how it comes out, and what then this will mean for any kind of tampering rules in the new governance, because that we don't know what the punishments and the rules are. They've just told us that they will be swift and severe, when people make violations. Great. Hopefully that happens. But you've never been able to figure that out before. And now you say you'll be able to have subpoena power because of the association agreements and all that. Great. But when it comes to tampering, how do you use this as a model for what's going on? And if this one was a step too far when it came to it, and it wasn't just your kind of run of the mill, call his high school wide receivers coach who he's really close with his uncle, and then his uncle can relay it. If it's not this game of telephone, those kind of things, because again, I don't know how you can even regulate that.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if this goes anywhere, but it'll eventually have to do something because it's a lawsuit.